Welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. I'm delighted to do this from Los Angeles to New Jersey right now with the amazing Kylie Murphy with her fantastic movie, Green. Kylie, it's really good to have you here. Big virtual hug. Really good to see you, and thank you for being part of New Filmmakers LA. But for those that haven't seen Green, let's take a look at a clip.
Half of the reason why we even watch these movies is the non-zero chance we get to see Tom Cruise die.
Ugh, the final stunt. He would for sure nab the Golden Globe if that happened.
I'd present it to him, or rather his lizard ghost, which Xenu gives you at Alpha 13.
Oh, you're presenting to him? That means you won Best Actress last year. I'm so sorry I missed that.
Oh, it's fine. I'm sure you were like super busy. You had that Aflac commercial.
That's right,
I
did. It was very, very bold of them to replace that duck with a white woman so late in their branding.
Kylie, so many questions. So thankful that you made a film called Green that is in my mind, in my brain, and such an important film. But for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
Yeah, so Green, well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Here. Green is about a female stand-up who gets bumped when a famous comic returns after sexual misconduct allegations.
This film is a sad reality, and so my question really is where the inspiration come for this film, but unfortunately this is an existence that forever needs to be put in front of people for people to be held accountable. But for you personally making Green, what was the decision for you to turn this particular story into a film?
Yeah, so I think most directly it came from, I obviously heard the stories of when Louis C.K. dropped into the Comedy Cellar and he did a surprise comeback set, and I've never really followed him that much, but there was like a leaked recording of it, and I heard the applause, and that's as far as I made it. But like, it was so thunderous. It was like if there was any dissent in the room, you couldn't hear it. Like, it just sounded like total acceptance, and that's like the default in these situations. Like, any deviation or any questioning is an individual response, and it is not the norm. So I think my imagination started wondering, well, what about the other people who were in that room that day? Like, what would it be like to be backstage? Or, I mean, they don't really have backstage, but in a situation like that, like, what are the stories that we're not really seeing that are happening behind the curtain that aren't like hyper visible? Because he gets the headlines. Like, a person like that is who gets the headlines, and it's not centered on the people it affects and the people who have to move around him and like the structure that upholds.
It's a horrible abuse of power too, and celebrityism, and certain people that get away with it, and particularly men. And I'm so what was aside from this obviously very real situation that happened, I still can't get my head around it, to be honest with you, because I feel like there was not enough said or spoken about. But moving towards the fact of how you wrote this, like, your writing was so good, like so good. You said everything that I because you portrayed these people that do exist, the men, with their kind of narrow-minded and lack of understanding thoughts and processes, and then these incredible comedians, female comedians that were like, how do you not understand? Like, they're hitting a brick wall. So good. How in the process of writing, particularly in this kind of Green comedy room, what was your kind of process of how you wanted to deliver this? Because I thought it was pitch perfect.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, the subject matter is so huge and daunting that the only way I felt like comfortable taking it on was to reduce it to like the smallest scale possible. So like, one room, one scene, 4 people. And that's kind of what I knew from the beginning going in. And then I wanted to look at people at like a different place on the hierarchy, because like each of the four has a different amount of power in the room. And like for CJ, the main character, I thought it was important that she had an ally and a friend in someone like Maggie, who is more of a veteran. And like, if Maggie, we talked about this in the rehearsals, like if Maggie was in the room with the two guys, like the dynamic would have really shifted. So that was like the starting place, was like, where do each of these people lie in the hierarchy, and like, how is that going to shape their response, and what will they do to protect their position? I spent a lot of time like reading reactions from these people on like Twitter, on the internet, who kind of have the same reflex response, no matter really who it is. Like, it could be anybody. Like, you know, there was Louis C.K. obviously, and like Crystalia, and like now most recently there's Dave Chappelle, and like they start reacting not necessarily to the person, but it detaches from the person, becomes, you know, more about the idea of like, you know, what they want to call cancel culture or whatever. And these responses become rote, and they're like so similar. Like, you see the same phrases all the time, and like they were pretty much like lifted out of what people are saying. Like lines in the film, like, you know, he served his sentence is a big one, and like, what do you want him to do now is a really, really big one. And it's just like frustrating when you're coming up against that, like you're saying, like a wall, like, because it detaches from the person, and these responses are just like reflexes. They're not listening. They're doing the same, you know, playing from the same script. So it wasn't really that hard to imagine how how these guys would react to it.
No, most definitely. Oh my goodness, I just you make a lot of sense. You want to run for office, like, please.
Sure.
You know, no, but seriously, I mean, you know, I just thought the context of you know, the language, the understand, everything was in that script, and it was really great to watch, because unfortunately it was so realistic on both sides. But you know, I'm just so curious, because this, you know, this also, I want to say the timing of the what I loved was the very quick thoughts coming back and forth. I really loved that, which of course would exist with a comedian. But was that something that was kind of important to you? And then how did that dynamic work in keeping that energy as a director?
Yeah, I mean, the script was, for like my class, you know, it's supposed to be like 8 to 10 pages or something, and it was definitely over it, because of just, it's so dialogue driven, and it is so rapid paced. I mean, I knew that would be with, when you're like kind of locking people in a room and depending the whole film on dialogue, like I knew it would rest on the actors, like, and they are all so incredible, and they're all like incredible comedian improvisers in their own right. So I think like that style of talking, of banter, of like back and forth, was so natural to all of them. So we also shot the film in one day, which I think lent to, which was not planned, but it lent to like the urgency of like, okay, let's keep it moving, keep it on its feet. Like nothing ever like went stale. I wouldn't do it again this way, but it definitely helped us, because we shot in order too. So it was like, we went through the whole script chronologically. So it helped us like keep going all the time. And also there are some like, it was like all handheld, partially because I knew there would be like moments that they would have and discover and improvise on set. So I wanted to be able to react to it and feel like we're experiencing it for the first time right now with them. And we don't really know what they're going to say. And so like part of the camera movement, I hope like communicates that. So there were like some improvised moments, which are so lovely. Especially my favorite is at the very end. The script basically ends when they smile, when she smiles, and they did that whole dialogue at the end, which, you know, ends the film, I think, on such a perfect note. And so I just have to like hand it to the actors, who are all incredible people and performers.
Your actors, yeah, let's just have a moment for your actors, because, you know, it takes special kind of actors to kind of deliver lines like that, the context, the kind of style of it too. And I know that some of those actors, you know, were kept in the family, and those guys weren't as misogynistic as they appeared to be either. Tell us a little bit about how you brought your cast together.
Yeah, so this was a student film, and like super low budget. So often like casting is one of the big barriers when you're making a student film, because obviously you're like not really paying anyone, and there's talent everywhere, but obviously certain people won't look at your script if it's a student film. And I was like, okay, I have to get, the only way this film is going to succeed is if I get the people who can pull it off. And thankfully I knew already 3 of them. Kate and Steve are the older man and woman, are like Second City improviser, comedy writer, actors. They're incredible. And I met them from babysitting their son. I started babysitting their son about 4 years ago and infiltrated my way into their family and somehow convinced them to do this, I was just like so lucky. And we have a great relationship. So it was so easy and lovely to work with them. And Luke, who plays the other guy, is my brother-in-law, and he is like playing the Jekyll to his Hyde self, like the complete opposite person. And then Aman, I did auditions, and she was someone who, obviously is incredibly talented, and she was at the point where she wasn't looking at student films anymore. But she was in UCV, and like just the premise of the film was enough for her to read the script. And then once she read the script, she was like, oh yes, I'm in. And she sent me like an audition tape, and I was like, okay, that's her. Like she walks that line between like comedy and drama so well. She's like so light on her feet. I just was so lucky to work with all of them. And they make the film. It wouldn't be that without them.
Well, Kylie, I really do love your style, and I love your script writing as well. And I just, I'm so excited that you're so early in your career, and there's just so many exciting things for you coming up moving forward. But I just want to just close on a kind of a duo sort of question. And firstly, like, what kind of storytelling for you personally drives you as a filmmaker? And then kind of with that being said, what is coming next for you?
Yeah, so this was the first film or project I worked on that wasn't like, before I was making, lots of sketch comedy type things and like satirical things. And, this was my first like real film, I felt like, because I'm also a DP. So this is the first film like I didn't also shoot. And I was just there to like direct, and also I edited it. But so I'm very like a DIY filmmaker, and this was like the biggest undertaking yet. And it was also my first kind of step into something more grounded and more dramatic. And I think it was, such a learning experience and illuminating to see that I could still bring the comedy that I enjoy and what I feel comfortable with, and it's like my favorite thing, into something that I felt like was really important to tell, into the story that was really important. So I think it's always going to be for me like walking that line of being able to find humor in human stories that I want to tell. And I think this film was like really important for me also as a filmmaker to see that I could do that, and it gave me a lot more confidence. So my next project, well, I was supposed to shoot in March 2020, which obviously didn't happen, which is going to be my final film at NYU, is a sequel to Green. And it's called Gold. And it picks up like a year later after the comic has returned from a successful comeback tour, which, obviously he would, as we're seeing right now. Because we shot Green in 2019, even though it feels like it could have, happened yesterday. And I felt like since then, the conversation, the questions were evolving. Not so much like, how does this person come back? Or like, does this person come back? And they always do. And it's like, now I'm wondering myself, like, how do we exist and create in a world where these people are welcomed back like this? So the film is largely a conversation between CJ, the main character of Green, and the comic, who we get to meet in person. And it was a way of me like working out a lot of feelings about it and like trying to understand this person or a person like them. And I'm really excited to be able to shoot it one day, hopefully next year. So yeah, that's my next project.
Well, obviously after Green, I'm completely invested in Gold. I can't wait. Like you need to make this, Kylie. Like we're all waiting for the next one. But I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're making a film with your, you know, fantastic star with, you know, the essence of, as dark as the story is, there's humor in there. Not that you're taken away from the story, but just because you're just incorporating another dimension into the conversation and into the subject, and you know, through the fact that this is comedians anyway going through this. And just well done on Green. I mean, I'm so excited for your career ahead. I really can't wait to see your next film, and thank you so much for bringing Green to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a lovely experience all week, and thank you.